Here's another revelation. This one is about how Jesus actually works. There have been many questions to if Jesus is God, or if he's the Son of God, or if he's just a prophet, or whatever it may be. I'll just start with Jesus being Jesus first, and then we'll go from there. How everything else makes its way. Okay, Jesus is twofold: 100% man and 100% God. The 100% man is the 100% flesh. He has flesh and bone. The 100% God is the 100% spirit of God. Now, God holds three parts to himself. He has a spirit, he is the Father, and he is the Son. All three are one. You can't get the Son without the Spirit, and you can't get the Spirit without the Father. All three are one. They're not separate, they are one. If you see one, you see them all. So that's how that Trinity works. Now, how Jesus actually worked on the earth, he actually had a physical body. Now, the purpose of the physical body was to be put up for a ransom for the atonement of sin. To be done with it, to be done with iniquity. Now, what Jesus did with his body was to sacrifice. It was made just to be a sacrifice. It wasn't made to be present on the earth or to be relevant to the earth, but it was made to be a ransom for the atonement that for the atonement of sin, so we can have the self-same spirit that's inside God be inside of us. Now, somebody may say, now how does that work? If we're made of God, how come we don't have his spirit? That's a story by itself of how disobedience, iniquity came in. And okay, I'll say it this way. If your mind, go here. If your soul is the mind, the will, and the emotion, if all three of those parts, let's say, agreed with killing someone, you are bound to that rule or the rules of killing, which means you are restricted to carry out the rules of killing. Now, for you, killing may have been just killing one thing or one person, but actually it's a spirit, and it doesn't have an endpoint to humanity. Humanity doesn't hold the rules to spirituality. That's God's domain. So since man fell to disobedience, man was bound to the rules of disobedience, which ultimately stripped us, I should say, away from God's spirit. If God say go left, we went right. So man was separated from God. We needed to get back reunited with God. God put it in man's hands to do so, but iniquity was so, I want to say, it abounded, or it has abounded so much. Man's heart was so consumed with it. It got to the point where God almost repented that he made man. So instead, he decided to save man with himself. So he came down into flesh. Now here's this is the significance of Jesus. He came down into flesh that he may give up his flesh as a ransom for the sake of the penalty of disobedience, so that you and I can have his spirit again. There will be nothing of disobedience that will separate us. Now, we still can choose to be disobedient, and we still see the fruits of that to this day. God can tell us to go left, and we still go right, and then the right looks good at first, but then it turns sour quickly, and everything seems to crumble down. And then we ask the question, why is this happening? Well, God told you to go left, and you went right. Disobedience still has rules to follow. It still has a penalty attached to it. It still applies. Now, if someone were to say, I haven't heard from God, how do you hear from God? Now, this is where, once again, the significance of Jesus. You have to have the Spirit of God. Now, this is where the discrediting comes in about Jesus. Is he Greek theology, or if he's mythical, or whatever the case may be? If you haven't had the Spirit of Jesus inside you, how would you know if he's real or not? Anything that's discrediting to that is based off a theory, some theoretic type of information or knowledge. He was born in France, he had children, whatever the case may be. Why would... Okay, never mind, I won't go there. But I would continue to say that the significance of Jesus was for his body to be a ransom for the sake of our penalty of sin. Now, we could say we didn't commit that sin. It was done in the beginning. Then I will ask you, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? The egg always comes first, because the egg is the chicken. The two are one. You don't see the chicken without the egg, and you don't see the egg without the chicken. Same thing goes for us. We are all descendants of one. So one is one spirit passed on. If there's a spirit of disobedience, it is passed on. If there's a spirit of obedience, it is passed on. Now, this is why it's being called born again, because your spirit is of obedience now to God. When God tells you to go right, you go right now. When we are up under disobedience, God tells us to go right, we go left. That means we're listening to disobedience. So Jesus, to sum this up, is to say, Jesus had given us his body, which made him 100% man, flesh and blood. Yet he was 100% God, because he had the 100% Spirit of God. And if you have witnessed this Spirit of Jesus, where you once was one way of disobedience, and now you are of obedience, you have witnessed this Spirit. Now you are 100% God. You have the same Spirit of God that's in you, and God consider it as equal. You no longer look at yourself as flesh and blood, even though you have flesh and blood. You look at yourself as an internal being as versus an external being. Now,